Hi, everyone, and welcome to Dare to Care with Michelle, the place where we learn not just how to care, but why to care. I'm your host, Michelle Wyman, and with me today is my friend, Marilyn Morales. Marilyn is a certified holistic registered nurse with over 30 years of experience in the healthcare field. She is the host of the new show, Unscripted with Marilyn Morales. Unscripted can be seen on YouTube, Anchor, heard on Spotify weekly on Sundays, as well as CTF TV. Marilyn has launched her book, When the Answer is No, Finding Purpose Through Pain, in January 2023. This journey takes you through her experience with PTSD in her experience in New York in 9/11 as a nurse, and her grief after losing her daughter Isabella to a rare form of leukemia. As a holistic wellness advisor and speaker, Marilyn's passion is educating and teaching others how to heal and move forward from emotional trauma of grief and PTSD using holistic methods as a guide. Marilyn also strives to carry on Isabel's legacy by shedding light on the need for diversity in the National Be the Match Registry. Everyone welcome Miss Marilyn Morales.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Michelle.
So let's start. If you don't mind, you and I met on Ultimate Speaker Competition in July in Philadelphia. First time I had been to Philadelphia. That was amazing.
Yes.
And Marilyn talked on stage about her experience during 9/11. Do you mind if we hit on that?
No, let's hit on it because that was actually my first time on stage.
That was, and I can't even believe it. You were a semifinalist, your first time on stage. That shows the calm and composure of a nurse.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's the calm and the chaos, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
That's something that we learn. That's something that we have to be proficient in is to be calm when everything is going crazy around us. And ultimate speaker competition will always be my first time, right?
I love
We
that.
always remember the first time when we do something.
I
And my
love
first
that.
time on stage was very impactful. Being surrounded by so many fantastic speakers, um, entrepreneurs, so many different people that I met there. Also, my first time really not being in Philadelphia, but spending the day in Philadelphia. I would drive through Philadelphia, right? And I said this even during that weekend that we were together is I avoid big cities after 9/11, right? I don't have a comfort with it because of it. I'm always on guard.
Right.
So being in Philadelphia, and then you guys took us on a tour of Philadelphia that first day.
That was so cool. We ran up the rocky steps, you guys. It was so cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And it was a breakthrough moment for me so that I could
Absolutely.
stop being afraid. I was surrounded by loving, caring people that made me feel safe for that first venture out into Philadelphia. So it was a breakthrough day for me.
That's so cool. And then your first topic on stage, we talked you talked about when you left your son who was what playing with grandma? I
Grandma,
don't,
my mom, my mother.
yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So my first talk had to do with, a day like that, a day that to many Americans started out as just any other day. But it wasn't just any other day. Our lives were going to change forever. The New York City landscape would be changed forever. And so would our lives. And that day was my 7th-year wedding anniversary.
Wow.
And my husband had been trying to get me to stay home, but I had started this new job as a public health nurse in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, right there, just a few miles from the World Trade Center. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not staying home. We'll celebrate when I get back. But with that, I'm getting 2 children ready. One ready for pre-K. She was, only 3 years old. My son was only 9 months old. And I was leaving him with grandma was going to take care of him while I went to work. Um, so every time, and as a lot of mothers know, your babies at that age, between 6 months and a year, whenever you leave them, they're crying. They don't
Yeah.
want you to go anywhere. So
Yep.
that would happen to me every morning. It would break my heart every morning that he would cry like that. So I took him upstairs to my mom and I was like, I'll be back to say goodbye. Went down to take care of my daughter. When I went back, I could hear him playing with my mother and he was laughing. She was making him laugh. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to let him be happy and I'm not going to go and make him cry. But
Yeah.
that decision would haunt me because I left, and we all know what happened that day. Just an hour later, um, our the World Trade Center was hit. We were in complete chaos. I didn't know if I was going to make it home. The city
Wow.
was under attack.
Right.
Right? The trains had stopped working. We had no phone lines. Everybody had to walk out of there in order to get home. You
Wow.
know, I didn't know if I was going to make it home. I didn't know if there was going to be more attacks. Even on my way to walking home, the police officers were telling me that there was talk, there was chatter about bombs on the oh my God, on the bridges.
Wow.
So I had to cross the Williamsburg Bridge in order to get into Brooklyn where I lived. And
That's
he was like,
terrifying.
yeah, he was like, we have no idea if there's additional bombs, if there's additional attacks. So I was like, I didn't know if I was going to make it out. And the only thing I could think of was, I never said goodbye to my son. I never said goodbye to my mom. What if I never see them again?
Wow. Yeah, they say that everybody knows where they were.
Absolutely.
I was at home and I remember um, getting a phone call saying, "Look on the news, there's something going on." And I turned on the news in time to see the parts of it, and I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know, should I rush to my kids' school and go pick them up?
Mm-hmm.
What? And I lived in St. Louis, Missouri, so I lived miles and miles away from New York. But are we under attack? I don't know what to.
Well, that's it. And remember, it wasn't just New York City that was getting hit, right? Washington, D.C., they were on their way there. You know, there were multiple planes headed to other destinations. It wasn't just New York. So
Right.
we didn't know. We didn't know what was next. It was the United States of America that was under attack that day.
Yeah, terrifying.
So same
Terrifying.
for me being right there. The first thing I did was call. I still had a phone, was call my husband and says, go get our baby out of school. She was in pre-K. He had just dropped her off.
Wow.
And I was like, go back and get her.
Yeah.
And go home.
Yeah. Wow. That's so scary. And I understand the idea of having PTSD. How did that affect you?
So, and PTSD didn't set in that day.
Okay.
I talk about that too. I was very calm that day. Initially very, as anybody would, right? You don't know what's going on. But then calm comes in, as nurses do. Then all of a sudden a calmness comes over you and you start to make decisions. Okay, what am I going to do right now? We're triaging. We're
Right.
triaging the situation. What do I do right now? And what's my next step? So you're calm during all of that.
Right.
PTSD came in after because fear set in afterwards. So it was the insomnia. It was not being able to sleep, being irritable,
Yeah.
not being able to eat, being
Wow.
extra vigilant and suspicious of everyone that was around me. So
Right.
paranoia was great for me because 2 weeks prior to that event, all the public health nurses of New York City had been taken to Columbia University for disaster training for the first time ever.
Wow.
And during that disaster training, I recall, and that was playing in my mind that day, I recall the guy on stage from the Red Cross saying, it's not a matter of if it will happen, but when, and made reference to the World Trade Center bombing
Oh my
that had
gosh.
happened a few years earlier. And I remember turning to a friend of mine and goes, who had been working in this job for a while. And I was like, you guys do this every year? Like, what is this? And she said to me, no, this is the first time ever. So
Wow.
I immediately, when that day came, I was like, oh my God, we just went through this training. Oh my God, they knew,
Right.
I'm starting to get paranoid over what did people know. And here we
Hmm.
are 2 weeks later undergoing this. So paranoia was really bad for me as part of the PTSD symptom, and the constant reel going through your head. I could hear the impact because when the first plane hit, the building I was in shook.
Wow.
And in my mind, I thought it was something else going on. In the city, we have a lot of noises, a lot of trucks, a lot of things going on. I thought it was something like that. Never in my mind would be thinking that something like that is happening, right? So as you're sleeping, here go the nightmares where you're reliving this. So I
Right.
had nightmares, and then I feel the impact, hear the whole thing, and then wake up
Wow.
thinking it was happening again. So it was I was very sick. I was very sick.
Yeah, that's just Marilyn, that's just terrifying. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that and feel that pain because it is It is terrifying that, so
Yeah,
sad.
and I'm not the only one, right? I'm just the only one who's talking about it.
Right. Right. And I don't think people realize that nurses go through PTSD. I don't think that people,
Yes.
PTSD is something for military, maybe police officers, but nurses do go through PTSD. And, a lot of nurses from COVID are going through PTSD.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah,
Yes.
a lot of nurses, and I was even feeling it for a while, and not diagnosed with PTSD, but just being, just not being able to sleep because I was thinking about, my part of my job is placing patients in the hospital. Literally during COVID, I would have 15 ICUs in the ER, and I have to one patient, one bed opens up. How did that bed open up? Most likely because someone
Somebody
died.
died.
And I have to pick which of these 15 patients gets the next bed. Which of these 15 patients do I pick the one who has the best chance of living, or do I pick the one that's the sickest? Like those are the
Decisions.
decisions that I had to make. And it was really horrifying. And then I did have nightmares, during COVID and right after, just about what's going on. And then, we'll have another strain come through where all of a sudden, we get another, maybe it's only 20 people, but we get another group of people that come through and have COVID again. And I'm like, oh, is it starting again?
That's right.
You know, it started with just, a cold, a couple patients, back at the beginning when COVID was just a cold, right?
Hmm.
And, it was respiratory. But then people with GI symptoms started being testing positive.
Right.
And, you place those patients. And as I would place those patients on a floor where they weren't protected as well because it was just GI symptoms,
Right.
right? And then my nurses got COVID.
Right.
So it was, people don't realize what nurses went through with COVID. And I appreciate you being willing to talk about PTSD and nursing, and because it's something huge. It's something
Yeah.
people don't give near enough credit to.
Absolutely. The stress levels that we're under and now going on 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I say, and this is something else that I know you'll relate to. We were the heroes that no one wanted in their homes,
Right.
right? Because we were dealing with the sick people.
Right.
So, yes, please save my life and help me, but don't come to my house. Don't come to my party. Don't come to my wedding. Right.
My nail girl wouldn't, she said, she was seeing people, like she sent that original a text to like all of her customers saying she would come and do your nails like with mask on and everything. So I said, oh, okay, I can get my nails done still. I can still feel like a human. She told me, no, I'm not comfortable doing your nails.
Yeah. There was a
Awesome.
lot of that. There was a lot of that. Not just the nurses, the doctors, anybody who worked in that environment. Everybody else was working from home except us, right? It's like, I still got to get dressed and go out and work for my day. Well, not that everybody was vacationing because it was a very rough thing, but still, we were sent out to war, you
Yeah.
know? And whenever we had to gown up to go into a COVID room,
Mm-hmm.
it's, oh my God, is this the day that I'm going to get it? Is this the day that I potentially bring it back to my family? You
Yep,
know,
you're
we were
exactly right.
stripping outside. We were stripping our clothes outside.
My garage every day. They went
Yeah,
straight from strip them, put them in the washer.
me too. And I even had UV lights. I had UV lights set up in my basement because I would come in through the basement and I would put the keys and the shoes and everything like that under the UV lights. My clothes would go in, to get washed, but then everything was UV light that it killed all my plants. I didn't have any plants. I didn't realize how potent that thing was.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't realize that was gonna happen.
Yeah, it was terrifying though, going home and being afraid to take it
Yes.
home to my family, and or just my daughter stopped to get gas. My daughter is also in healthcare. She works in the emergency room at one of the local hospitals in Las Vegas. She stopped to get gas and she had her scrubs on, and somebody told her, "You're part of the problem."
Ooh,
And like I went and bought pepper spray for me and my daughter because people were then starting to be attacking because they don't want us in the grocery store. They don't want us to get gas. I got to get groceries. I got to get gas.
That's what
Got
I'm
to
saying.
save
But
your life. I
then
gotta
they
get
don't,
gas.
but isn't this crazy? Those are the same people that don't take the precautions. And then when they're sick, right? And then they get sick, they want us to help them without any consideration for us that we have families and that we're human too.
Exactly.
Take the
Exactly.
precautions, protect us too.
Right.
That's why so many people left healthcare in droves. We don't have the nurses. The veteran nurses are gone.
Yes, you're right. You're exactly right. Yeah, people every once in a while I'll see people and say, "Oh, the nurses aren't really gone. The hospitals just don't want to pay for them." No, they're gone.
No, they're
They're
gone.
gone.
They're
They're
gone.
not just traveling. They're gone.
They're gone. They're done. They're done. They're moving
And
on to other different things. And hey, listen, we're older. I'm over 30 years. I know that you and I are the same, right? So
yeah,
it's
30 years, man.
30 years. So we have a skill set that we can do from somewhere else. We don't have to be at the bedside.
No.
We
And
choose
then
to be at the bedside.
right. But then think about those baby nurses, those nurses that just finished
Mhm.
school. They didn't touch human beings during nursing school. They
That's
passed
right.
and now they're a nurse. They're doing it all, you
They're
know.
doing it all.
And they're charge nurse. Why are they charge nurse? Because the experienced nurses are gone.
Right. And before
And
that used to be your mentor, right?
right,
You worked
exactly.
aside a seasoned nurse and she would teach you what to
Yeah,
do using
yeah.
old school methods. Because let's be real, the old school methods are the best methods.
They are still. It's funny,
We
those nurses,
always
I'll go
go
in to
back.
start an IV and they'll say, "Can you teach a class on how to do that?" I'm like, "You were supposed to learn that in nursing school." But yes,
No. Yeah, they don't. They don't. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that all these tools that are supposed to help us, all this automated blood pressure cuffs. I see a lot of people not able to use a manual cuff or not even to do a
oh
palp,
my,
right?
yeah.
Which is a lost art, but you got to touch your patient.
Touch
You
your
got to
patient.
look.
I
You
know,
got
it's
to
crazy.
smell. We could diagnose them with a smell.
You're so right. I love you. Yeah, this is old-fashioned nursing here. It's like we were taught in microbiology what different things smell like.
Yes.
And you walk into a room and you're like, that's Pseudomonas.
That's Pseudomonas. That's C. diff. I know it. Yeah. That's not regular diarrhea.
No. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
so that is how we grew up, isn't it? It's fun. And then I just transitioning is going to be tough on this one, but let's talk about your book when the answer is no. Tell us a little bit about your daughter, and then about what the foundation that is that you're creating.
Izzy's legacy. So, a few years after the 9/11 incident, in 2007, I had a little girl. She was my third child. And at the age of 7 months old, was diagnosed with a rare leukemia. So, not a leukemia that can be treated with chemotherapy. The only treatment for JMML leukemia, which is the name of it, um, is just a bone marrow transplant. So, she needed that particular treatment. They were hoping to get her, she was only 7 months old, treated at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and, you know, hoping to get her to the age of 2 years old before needing that transplant, hoping to get her older. But then things started to change with her blood work, and she needed that transplant sooner than later.
Right.
As we all know, getting a well, no, we all don't know this, but the best chance for you to find a match for yourself is going to be a sibling, someone who has the same mother and father, because genetics play a part in that.
Right.
So my other two children were her best chance, and they were both heartbreakingly just half matches for her, as was
Wow.
my husband and myself. And
Right.
that half match was not good enough for her cancer. In some disorders, in some disease where you need that, half a match is good enough. But for her, she needed better than that. So we had to search outside of our family for an unrelated donor. And the first thing that I was told was that that was going to be difficult because we were Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
And the presence of Hispanics and Blacks were low in the registry. So one of the first things I was told was like, listen, you better get yourself on television, start having drives to try to find the match for Isabella, because we're hoping to get her to 2 years old. We don't have much time. We have to start searching.
Wow.
So we did that. We did that. And fortunately, she had matches out there, you
Okay.
know, But in those first few months, like once we found out that we weren't matches, and as a nurse, we collect all those lab results. I collected them and I saved them.
Right.
And one day I decided to go into the registry, because back then you could do that. There was a program in the computer. You could go in there, you could put in your something called an HLA typing, which is what
Okay.
they look to match. So you could put that in there and see if you had matches out there.
Wow.
So I took her information. I saw she had matches, even though I had already been told there were several matches out there. They were going to reach out to these people and they have to say yes. This is all volunteer. So now they're a match and they now have to say yes. I saw that my husband had matches because I started putting in the rest of us in there out of curiosity,
Right.
and found that I had 0 matches out there,
Wow.
that my other 2 children had no matches out there. So
Wow.
that Isabella was the only one who even stood a chance at fighting this. Had it been one of us, there was no one out there for us. So I was paralyzed when I saw that, right? And I called my husband over and I showed this to him and I said, no matter what happens, and even though she's got matches, we need to continue to have drives because there's people out there that don't have them. So we need to continue to do this no matter what the outcome. And he agreed, right? And unfortunately, 6 months, she did get her transplant, and 6 months later, she succumbed to complications of her disease. She got her transplant. It did phenomenally well. She engrafted, so she got her donor cells and they grew in her body and she did well. But like we all know from COVID, if you're compromised, if your immune system is compromised, you're subject to other things happening to you. And because
Exactly.
of her transplant, she was on medications that, lowered her immune system. So she's, developed other infections.
Right.
And that is what ultimately took her from us,
Wow.
um, a year after her diagnosis because of that. Now we're fast forwarding, right, to January of 2022. My
Uh-huh.
oldest daughter, who was 9 years old at the time, is now 25 years old and is now working for Be the Match, the same organization that helped us in our time of need. Um, and she shared with me, now she has patients that she's trying to find matches for. And she says to me, Mom, it's still hard. I have this little girl who's been on the registry for years and I can't find a match for her. And I have these drives and a lot of people don't come out. And I'm like, well, that's crazy. And I can't believe that this many years later, this is still happening. And I made a decision January of 22 that I was going to do something different so that we
Uh-huh.
could have potentially a different outcome. And I said, and I'm going to do things that I've never done before. Get on podcasts like yours, right? Start talking out there, because I said, I'm perfectly positioned as a nurse to be able to speak on it,
Right.
right? As a Hispanic, right?
Right.
And as a mom who went through it. I'm not just somebody who's talking about it. I live this. And I
Right.
don't want that mom to feel like I did, helpless.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do something. And that decision was to write this book so that I could bring attention to the need for diversity on the registry and hopefully potentially save lives.
Wow. That's amazing. It's finding purpose through pain is what you did for sure, without a doubt. I was fascinated in the book that there was someone in your book that had a match, but the person said no.
Yeah, so there were 4 matches. She had 4 matches.
Okay.
And I think 2 of them didn't proceed. You have to, once you're identified as a match, you have to go through further testing to make sure that you're healthy, make sure that you match at a higher level so that we don't have symptoms of rejection. Well, some people said no. Some people
Wow.
said no. But there were 2 who said yes, right? Who said absolutely. And Mike, who is identified in the book and his picture is in there for everyone to see, is our angel. And he was the first one to keep going through everything and saying yes. And his story is
I love that.
impactful. His story is impactful because he is white, right?
Okay.
And when I met him, and we're talking about genetics, right? So we say, Mike, I asked him the $1 million question. I said, how is it that you matched a little Latin girl from New Jersey,
Right.
right? What is your story? What is your diversity, right? And he said, well, my paternal grandmother was from Mexico.
Oh,
So I
wow.
do have some Latin diversity. One person,
Wow.
one person. And he was able to match my daughter at a level that her own mother could not. I
That's
said, so
amazing.
that speaks to us as humans, right?
Right.
And how connected we all are. And if you
Right.
have that little bit of diversity and you think you can't help, look what just happened.
Right.
What just
Wow.
happened? So say
Wow.
yes, move forward.
No kidding. No kidding. That's amazing. And where was he from? Where do you live?
Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh. A million miles away from New York
A
for sure,
million
New Jersey.
miles away. And he just joined that registry that same month when we were searching. There was a drive. He worked for the postal system over there in Oklahoma, and there was a drive for his coworker. His coworker's daughter had leukemia and was
Okay.
searching for a match. And he said, well, let me try it. Let me see if I can match her. And they ended up calling him right away for a little girl all the way miles away.
Wow. Wow. Is that how most people get donated, and how they get matched is through like drives for someone specific, and then they're in the registry?
You're in the registry. So you're not just in the registry for that person. If you match that person, fantastic, but not. You're put into the registry to match anybody who's in need. And they tell you that when you sign up. You're not just signing up for this person. So you have to be willing to at least consider continuing going the steps further. What a lot of
Right.
people don't know is, what does that donation look like? And even for Mike, it was as simple as 85% of the cases is as simple as the procedure is as simple as giving blood. It used
Right.
to be where they had to go right into your bone. And that's what people remember, right? That they had to go into your hip bone and extract that spongy material that's within your bone that produces the cells. No more. 85% of those cases, no. You get
Okay.
hooked up to an IV, you get to hang out with some nurses at the hospital.
That's
They take out
amazing.
the stem cells that they need. They give you the rest back. You rest for a day or two, and you're back to normal after that from the majority of the cases.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought they were still doing it from the hip bone. That's wild. That's
A lot of
amazing.
people don't know that. And once they hear that things have changed, that things have progressed, they're more willing to say yes. Even
Okay.
just joining the registry, it's a simple swab of the inside of your cheek, a little
Oh, wow.
Q-tip,
Right.
right?
Right.
And people thought, and when I go to drives with my daughter, who does the drives, I volunteer for Be the Match. They think I'm gonna take their blood right there.
Right.
They're okay, you're gonna take my blood? No, I'm not gonna take your blood. It's as simple as a swab. That's it. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
Wow.
I've been on the registry since I'm 25 years old, and I've never
Gotcha.
been called. Never been called.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, when my younger son was 20 months old, he needed open heart surgery. And they said that was, I will tell you, that was back when HIV and AIDS was a big,
Yeah.
I mean, this was a minute ago. He's 33 now, so this is when,
In the 80s, right? Early
yeah,
90s?
it was early 90s.
Early
So
90s.
yeah, like I think it was either 89 or 90 when he actually had his
Mhm.
surgery. And it was scary. It was so scary, the thought
Yeah,
that, if he may need blood, and if he needs blood, what's going to happen? And so we had to have people that, that could donate. Now, donating blood is a whole lot easier than donating bone
absolutely.
marrow, but, we had to find people who were O positive, because he was O positive. And me and my husband both were, but for some reason, I never understood. They didn't want to use what we had. And he ended up not needing anything. Um,
Thank God.
yeah,
M-
but
m- My
it
my
was
daughter needed
scary.
my daughter needed several blood transfusions throughout her, because they would give her chemotherapy to keep her cancer at bay until we could get her to transplant. And she needed a lot of blood. And we had lots of people come forward. O positive, same thing. O positive, where they would donate blood and they would have it there at the hospital for her. And if she didn't need it, then they would give it to a whole bunch of other people who needed it, a whole bunch of other children, because we were a children's hospital, you know? So even that process of donating blood saves so many lives, saves so many lives.
COVID, like that was one of the big things that we were having trouble with blood, just having enough blood to
Yeah.
donate to people. It was just another thing. So what is Izzy's legacy? Explain to us exactly what that is.
So Izzy's Legacy is the nonprofit that I am forming, and that is to further the education of individuals about the need for diversity on that registry. So I identified, as I'm going around with my daughter, that the reason why people aren't joining is education. It's because you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
So I have to get the education to the people, right? And even though Be the Match does a great job doing that, sometimes you need to hear from somebody like me in your language that knows that, right? So in order to further that for myself and to be able to reach all these people, that's why I'm doing Izzy's Legacy, in addition to being able to help families like ours. So if somebody tells me there's a family just like yours that's in need, sometimes it's just meals. Meals in the hospital are expensive. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't want that. It makes you sick. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I,
Right.
I can only eat that for so long. I wanted a home cooked meal. So if
Yeah.
it's something like that, toiletries,
Yeah.
whatever it is that that family needs, then Izzy's legacy is going to be able to provide you with that because we lived it. And her
Wow.
legacy is to be able to help
That's
people
amazing.
like us.
You're so awesome. I just love you. You're so
Aw,
awesome.
thank you.
Tell me about Love Never Ends.
Love never ends. So this is an anthology that I am working on together with a good friend of mine, Julia Gandy, who happens to be a massage therapist for a hospice. So, in one of our events that we attended together, we were speaking and we talked about our combined experiences of being myself or my daughter, my mother, and my grandmother during that last stage of life, right when somebody is here still in the present, but is about to transition to death,
Right.
right? And so a lot of people are scared, not about death, but how they're going to die and what that looks like. So we have a unique perspective on that because of our jobs, because of what we do. Her with her father, me with these three women.
Right.
That was so important to me. But I know a lot of nurses who are there for that last stage. I know a lot of people who are there because of what they do. And we want to honor that last stage of life.
Right. Wow.
So we're looking for people that have that experience, who can share with those who don't have that and who are afraid of that. So we
Right.
can remove that taboo and say there are ways for you to honor that last stage.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's so crazy, so amazing. It's just beautiful. There's nothing like being with someone, and that's something else the new nurses don't know yet. They're scared to
Yeah.
death when their patients die. They don't know what to do, and they don't understand that they can sit in there and hold that person's hand, and so that that person's not alone when they as they transition, so that that
Because we
person's
know
not, you
that's right.
know,
Because we know the last thing that is lost, right, is hearing.
right,
So they can still hear.
right,
They can still know. They can feel our presence. And it's important what we do in those last moments, that we don't have a Jerry Springer in the background, right? Or something on the TV.
right, right. I
We
agree with
want
you.
we want peace for that person. We want that music that they loved, sense that would bring them peace and calm. That's what we want. And whenever possible, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. I love that. And that's a message that we need to get out to a whole lot of people, and not just nurses need to know it also, but so do family members. Family members need to
Yes.
know the same thing, that they don't want Jerry Springer playing in the background, that they want to be peaceful and loving and with the person, and not on their phone
Yeah. And that's our
waiting.
audience. Our audience is those people. The people that we want this book to reach is not those of us that have experienced it.
Right,
It's those that haven't. It's those family members so that they understand why we're setting the stage for the transition. We're
right,
setting a stage. The same way that we set the stage for when a baby is about to be born, right?
right.
We dim the lights. We make it warm. We do all these wonderful things when people are about to enter this stage. So let's do the same thing when we're about to leave this place to the next, when
Wow.
we're
Yeah.
going home.
Yeah, that is really amazing. Thank you so much for, oh my gosh, everything you're creating is so, you and I are on the same path right now of creating things to just improve the world, and to care and show the world what caring is about. And I just appreciate you so much. So, do you have any final words for us?
Well, let's talk about Dare to Care,
Let's talk
right?
about Dare to Care. So what do you think, Dare to Care? What is it, what goes through Marilyn's mind when she hears that phrase?
When I hear Dare to Care, and I remember when you first talked to me about Dare to Care, it is having the courage to care so much about something that you speak up, that you show up, that you do the things that we do because we care.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
there,
I
is have the courage to care.
have the courage. Exactly. That's so much is, I talk about that since COVID, since we were all in our homes,
Mm-hmm.
people forgot to learn how they forgot how to care because they didn't have to, right? They could, everything was on the computer or on their phone, they didn't talk to people. It's, you know, they didn't have to deal with people, and they forgot how to care. And I
Listen,
want to learn people to learn again how to
to
care.
care, right? Going back to my first experience with PTSD in 9/11. 9/11 was followed by September 12th,
Right.
which was the best day,
Right.
right? The best day followed the worst day because on September 12th, everybody cared,
Right.
right? We
Yeah.
were all united. We were all caring about one another. We were
Hmm.
all hugging and we were together. September
Right.
12th. We
That's
dared to care
amazing.
on September 12th.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a great point. Wow. What so let's talk about a couple of, just to throw out a couple words. Sound fun?
Throwing out a couple words. I
I'm
don't
gonna
know
throw
if
out a
that sounds
couple words.
fun. Go ahead.
Just word association. Speaker.
Uh-oh.
What is a speaker to you?
A storyteller.
Storyteller, which is what you were.
That's right. I started out being something else, right? And quickly realized that that's not who I was. I
Right.
was not an inspirer. I was a storyteller.
Okay. Okay. What is the word legacy?
Legacy means leaving something behind way after my physical body exists.
Wow. Great. And let's see, what's another one? Well, what does caring mean?
Caring means heart,
Art. I love that.
feeling it.
I love that. I love that. Marilyn, thank you so much for taking your time to spend with me today. I appreciate you. I love everything that you represent. You're just, everything you're doing is amazing, and I am excited to be I'm excited that we're part of each other's world. You know, you're part of Dare to Care. I'm part of Love Never Ends. We're part of each other's world, and that's just so exciting. And I'm just beyond, you know. But thank you for taking your time to be on this show and
Thank you for
chat with
having me.
us.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
And this will end this episode of Dare to Care with Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you real soon. Remember that caring is
Bye.